with Learning Along the Way. Learning Along the Way, Michael Licata.
Thank you, excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and our guests. I decided to give this speech today, and I thought it was a good idea to do it on our open house, is to explain how Toastmastering mentorship works within the club, within the division and area. Joining a public speaking group can be very daunting. And in the last 5 to 7 years, I would say, the need for mentors has grown and grown and grown as people that have joined are even more green than normal when it comes to public speaking. So the true value of being a protege and being a mentor is invaluable. There are plenty of members here at AM Lockport that do a tremendous job in terms of being mentors and helping out new members and helping out potential members that want to join. Because there's so much experience in this club, we have a abhorrently high level of DTMs, which isn't a bad thing. It just makes every other club kind of look poor, but that's my own opinion. So I'm going to say thank you to all the people, all the DTMs in our club that do all the hard work, and understand that as a new member, there is plenty of resources, and we're all simply an email away when it comes to learning how to best get everything out of Toastmasters, whether it's speaking, whether it's evaluations, or it's the other jobs of grammarian, timer. You sharpen other skills as well when you join Toastmasters, and it's very important to develop listening skills as well. Now, I've been a member of the club for 10 years now. I've learned a lot. I've learned how to pace myself when it comes to speaking. I learned to slow down. I learned to listen a lot better. I can read situations and rooms and scenarios, and you can read nonverbal language. And it's these countless meetings that I've gone to help engage in both the professional setting and the social setting. Now, in one of the situations where I was a protege, about 5 years ago, when I started umpiring, I will be honest and tell you that the first summer of umpiring was definitely the hardest. I didn't say I was thrown into the deep end right away, but because the investment is so much, because everything costs a lot of money, and it still does, I was eager to make up a lot of the money that I spent back, so I decided to take games that, in reflection, I probably shouldn't have done. And it was a lot of unfortunate evenings making phone calls to certain members of our organization that were able to help me get over a lot of the anger that I was feeling, a lot of the uncertainty I had in my skills. And they did a really, really good job of nurturing me so I could get through that first year. And it's been a lot easier ever since. And I'm still learning. I'm still finding new ways to help our next future generations of umpires, because it is one thing that we are trying to do, is we are trying to better retain a lot of the guys that join. I have found that if you're able to, myself as being one of the younger guys in the organization, if you're able to talk to a couple of people, and I'm able to talk to younger generations instead of it feeling like being lectured by their older parents or their older uncles or anything like that. So that is one of the times where I was a protege, and I'm always learning. Even now, 10 years in, 5 years in, Toastmasters does a great job of providing the tools you need to excel at in the workplace. Now, within the last 2 or 3 years, with the launch of Pathways, they shifted away from doing a lot of like the community clubs and a lot of the community speeches, and they've geared it more towards the corporate workplace. And if anybody is ever thinking about Toastmasters, I do recommend it for the professional space, because there are a lot of former Toastmasters members that came here, joined, learned how to become better public speakers, and they actually went on to a promotion at work, and they're no longer members, unfortunately. But we know as a club, we were able to help them become better public speakers, and it helped them progress in their job. So that is a true tangible result of joining Toastmasters. It's very important to have mentors and have protege relationships, because it helps build confidence in the protege. It also allows an experienced Toastmaster to shine light on what the person could do better. It can show them and explain better what the mentor can do better as a mentor. And they're great resources. And here at AM Lockport, we have a lot of great resources for potentially new Toastmasters. I encourage anybody to sign up. And I know going forward with the hybrid meetings, everything is turning out really, really well. And I just want to know any potential new member, there are a lot of resources when it comes to developing Toastmasters mentoring. And I look forward to seeing the new challenges presented by our new members, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Michael. Fellow Toastmasters, we'll make a slight adjustment to the schedule this morning. So our third speaker, Ryan, is here and he does intend to speak. However, Mark Crane was ready to give a speech, but I think given that we're doing pretty well on time, we might be able to fit in all 4 speeches if you're still willing, Mark. Tracy, since you have both projects, are you willing to double dip on the evaluation? Okay. Maybe what we'll do is we'll play with the order a little bit, maybe make you number 2 and number 4, so at least you can breathe for 2.5 minutes or somewhere along those lines. So, I'm sorry. Unless we have a volunteer for a 4th evaluator.
I could do that if you would like.
Okay.
This is Kate.
All right. We'll have to figure out how to get you the project information for Mark. But okay. All right. We'll do that on the fly. So, okay. We'll move on to our third speaker this morning, which is Ryan Floor, evaluated by Tracy Farrell. Tracy.
All right. So our third speaker is Ryan Floor. He's juggling quite a bit from home to work and now Toastmasters. And he's going to talk to us today about leading and managing. He's been an excellent leader in the past. His project is telling us about his leadership style. I believe it's the first or one of the first speeches in the leadership manual. Well, it's 5 to 7 minutes, Mr. Timer, and our Toastmaster does have his title.
Thank you, Tracy. Please join me in welcoming Ryan Floor with Can You Manage a Lead? Can You Manage a Lead, Ryan Floor.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I am on my Chromebook, and so my virtual background plugin does not work with the browser extension that I have access to right now, so forgive me as we adapt to lacking the technology to display what I would like behind my head. Can you manage to lead? Boss, supervisor, CEO, team lead, shift lead. There's a lot of different titles that go into a superior at work, whether it's a rigid structure or a loose understanding. There are several different types of influences that are reflected in this. The most common is, of course, dictated by paper. There's somebody that you report to. That somebody doesn't necessarily have an impact in your day-to-day operations, but everybody has somebody. What's the difference, though, between somebody that can manage the organization and somebody that can lead a team? It's rather subtle, believe it or not, but it's also rather evident. Both leaders and managers tend to have goals, objectives, and an end vision insight for where they want to be, whether the timeline is 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, or maybe a 5-year or 10-year strategic plan. But it's in the implementation that we start to notice the most real differences. We might have heard in speeches past or in our own studies different styles of leadership. This might be bureaucratic, democratic, authoritarian. All of these describe specific ways that individuals might interact with their subordinates and their peers in order to achieve an objective. In reality, most people specialize or focus on just one or two. This, to me, is one of the primary differences between somebody that's managing a group and managing to achieve something and somebody that is leading their team to success. If we look at a good leader, I like to use the verbiage of a toolbox. In the toolbox, let's say you pull it out from underneath your kitchen sink, you typically have a Phillips and a flathead screwdriver. You have a hammer, maybe a utility knife, a tape measure. All of these different things have their purpose. If you're trying to hang a picture with a tape measure, something might have gone awry in your life. And don't get me wrong, I've pounded nails into walls with very strange objects. But if we have access to the hammer, let's take it out and make our lives easier. So as you look in the toolbox of leadership, really what we want to understand is our end objective. Now, how do you phrase that end objective to a team? Well, if you look at a authoritarian style leadership, you might get an objective from on high that says we have to make 30 widgets in 30 days. So you tell your team we have to make 1 widget a day for the next 30 days or we have failed. And that's true. There's nothing wrong with implying and inferring that information from your superior down to your team. But what have you really done? You've given them a goal, but you've avoided mentioning purpose. You've avoided mentioning the how. And if we remember back to grade school, we were always taught the 5 W's and the H. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. What's the point of making 30 widgets in 30 days? Is this helping the company somehow? Is this helping the team? Let's take it down to a smaller level. Is this helping the family in the house? Why are we sweeping the floor every day? Is it really that dusty? As you communicate and leverage the personnel and the people that are at your disposal to achieve an objective, what a leader can do is really emphasize the purpose and direction behind a given task. Depending on the buy-in you have and the culture that you have at your company, this can be crucially important to getting people to achieve those goals. If you consider a company that makes $15 billion a year in revenue, and you're told that you have to make 30 widgets in 30 days, those personnel are probably not going to blink if they only make 27 or even 20. But if it's a small family-run business where there's constant communication between the different levels, then they're probably going to have more gumption behind finishing off and completing those 30 widgets in 30 days because they have a purpose, a task, and they have a known entity that they're assisting. And so what's really important in commanding those different leadership styles is truly understanding the team that you're with and how they respond. As we break down and go back to the leadership styles, talking about authoritarian, dictatorship, democratic, different persons have different reactions. Everybody's heard of somebody called a worker bee. Well, a worker bee just wants to know what they're supposed to be doing. Whether their work ethic is good or bad, they will follow instruction with a simple command. Go from A to B, go from B to C. Step it out in chronological order, and you find that they produce a good product and they do a good job. Some people, when you tell them a command like go to A to B, they have 4, 5, 6, or 10 follow-up questions. I don't have a toddler yet, but I'm already prepping for this. Are we there yet? Why? Really important questions that we often brush aside, but when you're leading a team and trying to get them to achieve an objective, it's incredibly important to provide this context and detail in order to get them to buy in. And so when you're a leader, don't be afraid to be a dictator, but also understand that your team members need that democratic approach. There needs to be some bureaucracy because we need to make sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's. And never be afraid to get your hands dirty. Get in there, do the work with your team. Never make them do something that you're not willing to do yourself. Lead from the front. Never give them a task you wouldn't do. And always remember that a tape measure makes a poor hammer.
Thank you, Ryan. Earlier in this meeting, we acknowledged all of our veteran Toastmasters. So Ryan, given that you are a veteran, I believe, I hope I'm not mistaken, I would like to take this time to thank you for your service as well. Our fourth and final speaker will be Mark Crane, evaluated by Kate Orr. Kate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. I am honored to be evaluating Mark Crane, our newest member, and I am wondering if your time is the traditional 5 to 7, or if you'd like something different. Not sure if you're engaged back into pathways yet.
Well, I'm a little shy of my first pathway, but as always, I always come with something to say. And
Okay, did you already start? Am I introducing you still, or you want to roll with it?
I'll roll with it.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
I dress for the day. I normally don't do that. The last time I took off camouflage was when I was with a troop unit, and that was back in the 90s. It really doesn't go with what I do today. The fact of being a veteran is it's my honor that I've had a chance to serve, and it's my honor today to speak in front of you. Because it gives me a chance tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll be at Outwater Park, and I'll be doing a speech at on the 11th hour of the 11th day. I'll be doing a portion of a speech, and that was normally given by Renee Knight. She was a member of a career educator with Lockport schools, and she brought out children from the school, and they would recite the Flanders Field and America's Answer to that. And this year she died. The last 2 years, we haven't been able to be in Outwater Park to celebrate Veterans Day. And Renee Knight was a fixture there. And even though she wasn't a veteran, her husband was, and he was a president of the VFW here in Lockport, and he passed several years ago. In honor of Renee, I was going to mention her for tomorrow. This gave me a chance to practice my speech and maybe be able to get it right tomorrow. And Renee, even though she wasn't a veteran, I wanted to showcase the fact that a lot of people there don't get the local paper, and they have no way of knowing that Renee had passed. And this year we didn't have a music teacher or any teacher within the system that was going to follow in Renee's footsteps. And I asked the local commander of the Legion if I would be allowed to speak in her place. And then they're going to allow me to do that tomorrow. And of course, it's a great honor for me to be out there with my fellow veterans. And the honor is mine. I was a captain. I started out as an enlisted man. I was a private. I raised my right hand. And a lot of people say, why did you do that? The draft ended. You're a volunteer. I have veterans from Korea, from Vietnam era saying, you know, we're proud of you. I said, why are you proud of me? I was a stateside guy. They call us REMS. I'm not going to elaborate what that means, but I was in the rear area. The thing about being a veteran is that sometimes it takes 20 people back home or in the rear area to keep those people on the front line doing the job that they have to do. And I'm here today to tell you that veterans are probably some of the most peaceful-minded people that you'll ever meet. Even though they're forced to, and sometimes conscripted to, fight for their country. A lot of them recently were drafted. They were conscripted, forced to go. Some actually had deferments because they were in school. And a lot of people felt that it was unfair because that was due to someone who had money to go to school. So it was very one-sided. Poor families were overly taxed with the fact that they had to go off to war, and also Black and brown Americans were too. And today we have a all-volunteer service, which I'm glad to say that we ended the draft. But there's people have to sign up for the selective service. Our government wants to know where all the people are that they might need in the event of a war or an emergency. And you're forced to do that. At 18, you still have to sign up for the selective service, even though there's no draft. And a lot of people, they have to be reminded, you're 18, you have to go. You have to go sign up, and they're going, oh no, we don't do that here. I said, yes, you do. It's against the law. But we really aren't following that. And in times of need, they will call on our youth. And the last couple of times we had to go to the country for soldiers, sailors, and service people, our older vets came forward. They came forward and said, give me a shot again. Let me do this again for the country. And they didn't have to go back to the draft. And all those things kind of stole my thunder about Veterans Day and how it started out. Yes, it was Armistice Day, the end of hostilities in World War I. And it was called Armistice Day. In some areas of the world, it still is. In Canada, as a matter of fact, coming up, not on the 11th, but on the 15th is Poppy Day. And that's what they said with the Flanders Fields. And I'm not going to bore you with the Flanders Field. If you come out tomorrow, you can hear me in the park. But basically, John McCrae, who was a major when he wrote this, and he died during the conflict. And he became a lieutenant colonel and a poet. And in Flanders Fields, row on row, the poppies grow. And the poppy stood for the blood that was shed over in Flanders Fields. And still today, we see those flowers sprouting up, and that's where the idea of the poppy comes. And given the chance, thank a vet. Unfortunately, a lot of veterans feel very uncomfortable when you do that. But we are glad that we hear that. But I didn't do anything special. I was a captain, but I was a private first. And most of all, I tell some of my friends, I was a has-been. I was a rear echelon guy. But my number one thing that I did in my service, even though it was It was really, really not a stellar career, but I did take care of my people. And that was the most important thing I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for the very timely speech and stepping up today. I'd like to ask our timer, David, to give us a timer's report, please.
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster, all 4 of our speakers qualified. Margot came in at 5:04 under her icebreaker 4 to 6 minutes. Mike Licata at 6:44, Ryan at 7:15, and Mark at 7:07. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, David. So there you have it, fellow Toastmasters. Please cast your vote for Margot, Michael, Ryan, or Mark. At this point, I'd like to briefly honor a few of my family members who served. My dad, Lewis, U.S. Army during the Korean War, had the great fortune of serving during the war, but stateside the whole time. A couple of my uncles, Vincent and John, I did a speech about them. They were fraternal twins, had the great fortune of serving in the Army during that narrow window between World War II and Korea, one in Germany and one in Korea, managed to dodge all the hostilities. My uncle Peter was in the Army during the Korean War, and my cousin Mark, who I am named after, was a Marine who sadly went to Vietnam and did not come back, unfortunately. At this time, I would like to move to the evaluation portion of the meeting. Our first evaluator will be Beth Banks. Beth.
Sorry, I have to make you work even harder than you always work, Glenn. It was quite an honor to evaluate Margot. Obviously, she's a pro. She knows what she's doing. She uses great humor throughout. The eye contact is good, and that's difficult when you're trying to make eye contact with live people in front of you and that camera up there. It's not always that easy. Of course, she gets very excited about what she's trying to say, and that's a wonderful thing. If you're not excited about what you're going to say, maybe you need to choose a different topic because you need to be a little excited about what you're going to be saying. Margot always brings that. I love using props, so I love that you used, we couldn't see them that well, but I love that you use that. And that's a really good thing. It really keeps the audience interested in what you're saying. I felt there was a little bit of rush at the end, so I felt that the then and now, maybe you could work on the now part. It seemed that you kind of rushed through that a little. I would like to have that comparison. We do have some new members. What do they have to do now in order to be on Pathways? So I would have liked to have seen that a little bit more from you, but you're a pro, you know what you're doing. You know, it's not an easy thing to speak in front of people. I know, but I do appreciate that you came on board and talked a little bit about then and now, and I think it was appropriate for an open house. Thank you very much, Margot.
I'll improvise. I'll leave that in place for Tracy because I watched her do her introduction from her toes before. Our second evaluator this morning will be Phil Russell. Phil.
Oh, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, our guest, Sarah, and especially Michael. Mr. Michael Licata. You are improving exponentially with every speech that you give. Kudos to you. I liked your open. It was a good opening. That is a very important part of a speech. In fact, the two most important parts of a speech are the opening and the close. The opening was good. I want you to tighten up the close. Put a little bit more into it to make us want more. That is important. You accomplished what you set out to do. I liked the stories. It showed how mentoring works. It works both for the mentor and the mentee. Using your example of umpiring, you found out how to overcome a lot of problems. And in that, when you become a mentor, you also now know how to help that person along. And your mentors helped you along, and they found out all the problems a young umpire is going through. That's important. Did a great job with that story. A little thing that I would like to see on your storytelling. It's not that great of a process, but it's just tighten it up a little bit. You know, just the organizational skills on that will help it out a lot more. It works. You not only spoke on the subject, but you accomplished it by explaining what it was. And that was what you were supposed to do. You accomplished what you needed to do. One other thing I want you to add to it is a little bit more enthusiasm and animation, because that will help out that speech even more. Next time, as I said, you're improving exponentially. Now let's take it to the next level. You could do it, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Phil. Our third evaluator is Tracy Farrell. Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I think it's easier for me to be on my tippy toes than it is for you to kneel. I know. So, thank you, Ryan, for your service. I wasn't aware that you were in the military, and maybe it was your military service that allowed you to come to Toastmasters today amidst all the chaos in your life. And when you came, you were slow in your speech, you were deliberate in your speech, and you had those pauses. And that really made us sit, listen, and pay attention. We really had a chance to absorb what you were saying. You also distinguish between managers and leaders. Managers check off the boxes. Leaders tell us how to do that job better, which I thought was very good that you distinguished those. You talked about the different types of leadership. One of the things I would have liked to see you do is tell us about the leadership styles in your life. How does this apply to you, and what did you learn from this project? And along the way, Toastmasters, we always learn, tell us a story. Tell us a story about your leadership style and what you did in your life to manage that type of style. And if you really want to challenge yourself, tell us how leadership applies to your audience. How can we apply the authoritative style in our daily life? We all have kids. We all have to use that style at one time. How to different types of styles. I don't have all those styles, but how to apply each 4 of those styles in our daily life. However, once again, you did a fantastic job. You were very clear because you spoke slowly and deliberately. You had excellent eye contact with your audience. You were very comfortable coming before us, telling us about these styles. And it was an interesting topic. We all learned something from it. I always love it when you come to talk to us about things that you're working on and so forth, and I hope you continue to do so. Thank you, Ryan, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tracy. Our fourth and final evaluator this morning will be Kate Orr. Kate.
Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters, our honored guest, Sarah, and most especially, Mark. I will do my best, Mark, to evaluate you in a way that both encourages and elevates you as a member and a speaker with AM Lockport. I'm so glad that you decided to join our club. It is great to hear your voice again. And what a voice you have. The tools in your toolbox include that voice. You have such a way with tone and pacing, your volume. We could hear you the entire time and you really connect with us. I think that you came today prepared. You encapsulated a prepared speaker for us today. You gave us an organized presentation. You had on your uniform. You brought props. You were prepared for the speech. I enjoyed the connection to the theme of the day and the holiday tomorrow this week, and hearing a bit of your past. And we got to know you a little bit better that way, and some of your values. I appreciate that you are sharing with us today and then again tomorrow at Outwater Park the memory and legacy of Renee. I love to hear Flanders Field. I don't love it. It's sad. It's bittersweet. I am glad that you opted to give snippets of it today because of timing. In the interest of timing, since we added a fourth speaker, and just so you personally could make the time goals, I thought that was a good choice that you said, come hear me tomorrow. And you mentioned that it's a difficult and painful poem for many to hear. And so that gave us insight as well. I think my only challenge for you, especially as your VP of E, your Vice President of Education, is to let the Toastmasters structure within AM Lockport and Toastmasters International guide you. So two things for pathways, being on pathways and using this as a pathway speech and getting credit. I can assist you better personally with that. And pathways I'd like to think of as a choose your own adventure. If you have heard of those kinds of stories, it's kind of like that, where you're choosing your path. And then also, I would say just for the structure of our club is a bit more structured than I know other club you've been in. So I would say touch base with your Toastmaster of the day and or the VPE. Hey, I'm coming with a speech. Hey, I have a backup speech. If anybody would like to, or you can email the whole club and offer that up. And I can show you how to do that within our messaging board too. Phil Russell and Marty Johnston use the message board the most. It's a great resource for us to see each other, hear each other. I appreciate so much, Mark, that you spoke for us today. I was off the hook as alternate speaker, so I was grateful for that as well. And thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, for making it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Mr. Timer, David, can you give us a final timers report, please?
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster, everybody qualified. Beth came in with the buffer at 158, Phil at 232, Tracy at 216, and Kate at 318 with the buffer. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, David. There you have it, fellow Toastmasters. Please cast your vote for Beth, Phil, Tracy, or Kate. Fellow Toastmasters, very briefly, in my lifetime, I would like to believe that we have gotten better as a country in terms of how we acknowledge our veterans and how we treat our veterans. I see far more acknowledgement than I recall as a youngster. And to touch on something that Phil alluded to earlier, I think we've moved beyond unfairly holding any veterans accountable for a conflict that may not have been universally popular, and I'll leave it at that. But let's also agree that we can always do better for our veterans, especially those who are struggling and have fallen upon hard times. At this point, I would like to turn control of the meeting over to our general evaluator, Jill Roaring. Got tongue-tied for a minute, Jill.
I guess I was not expecting that, but that's okay, because as a Toastmaster, I am prepared. At least I'm trying to be. First, I'll give my evaluation of what's going on, of the meeting and stuff. Mark did an excellent job as Toastmaster. He started already last Friday, sending out the agenda, getting people to fill in, to confirm, filling in the blank spots that develop, as they always do. Even working on that once we got here this morning, which ended up not being necessary. And then he juggled the situation and made it work well. It was a lovely theme given the day. And I think we all can honor our veterans. I have several in my family that they're all on my dad's side. As far as my mother's side, I think they got exemptions for being farmers and just the ages. But on my dad's side, 2 uncles out of 3 uncles were in the Army. One was in Korea, where he battled the cold weather. The other was in pre-Vietnam, but he was in Berlin during the early occupation, some of the occupation. He was a ranger. My dad was in during Korean War, but he was in Germany, probably because of the fact that his brother was over in Korea. They, by then, were not sending multiple members of the same family. My Aunt Dolores was the firstborn of the 7. And while she was not military herself, she was married to a career military. And she did quite a bit of world traveling because of it, and had her kids in numerous locations. I was also married to 2 veterans. Dan volunteered. He was there during peacetime in the Navy. I probably should have seen this warning sign because he was honored. He was discharged under less than honorable circumstances. It wasn't dishonorable, but it wasn't honorable. Keith was a veteran of Vietnam. He started in Vietnam in '61 before it was a real conflict. His body ended up being ravaged by Agent Orange and from being a prisoner of war because of what they did to him over there. Back to the evaluators. They all did a good job today. I was concerned about Beth's time. She did a very nice job with doing a tough speaker, Margot. It's hard to evaluate somebody as accomplished as Margot is. I was glad to see she did qualify with the buffer. Phil did an excellent job with sandwich material. The one thing I think he could have mentioned was the body language that Mike Licata had. Tracy, again, another well-done sandwich. Nothing stood out for me as being significant. Nothing stood out for me as being bad. Kate needed the buffer on the other side. She again had a well-done sandwich approach. So now I will start calling for job holders. Let's see. Marty, our master and grammarian master, who's on his way up here already.
Thank you, General Evaluator Jill, fellow members, and most welcome guest. As our master, Eric had an and a you know. Carol Ann had a few ums. Mark Crane had more than 5 ahs and 1 I had an Edna Stubbs prompt in my mind when Margot was speaking and I heard a so. I recorded a so. Tracy had 1 ah. That concludes my master report. Moving on to my grammarian report. I heard some wonderful use of the English language. Phil Russell. I heard Phil say, you are improving exponentially to Mike Licata. Eric Schneider. Paraphrasing what he said, I overcame it and I pulled myself out of it. Kate, in summary, I liked the phrases you used when you were praising Mark for his military service. Mike Florio, the quote, I liked what you said, only the dead have seen the end of war. Carol Ann, you said dragged him from harm's way. And I personally would change it if I were to say it again, and I would say dragged him out of harm's way. Real quickly, a few more. Beth Banks, I heard you say, I felt that you kind of rushed through versus I felt that you rushed through. Mark, I envisioned and I could see the picture you painted when you said the following, I raised my right hand. And the most important thing, Mark speaking, I did was take care of my people. Margot, I enjoyed the phrase, having gone through and earned my DTM gave me confidence to take on other projects. And let me see, Jackie, Kenny, I would always give honor to anyone that gave service to our country. And I'm going to stop there for the sake of time. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Well, now I will go to our virtual Zoom room with Nancy Rose as our quiz master. Let's stump us, Nancy.
Thank you. I was looking forward to coming today to the open house, but I'm not feeling so well. So I'm very appreciative for Zoom. But here I have your quiz. First, who had a sleepover with a soldier and her girlfriend?
Jackie.
Jackie. Who has superpowers to spread love, courage, and joy every day?
Eric.
That's Eric.
Eric, yeah. Who honored his grandfather, sister, and son for serving? Bill. Okay. Who is using his Toastmaster skills to excel in the empire world as an empire? Mike Licata. What do poppies stand for?
Blood.
Yes. According to Ryan, what are the 4 W's that make a good leader?
What, when, where?
Where, when?
I was 5.
5. I'm sorry, you're right.
How?
And how?
How? Okay, you're gonna have to use your math. Who was a Toastmaster for 24 years?
Margot.
Marco.
Margot.
Mhm.
And lastly, who wants us to remember to do better for veterans, especially those who have fallen and are facing hard times?
Mark.
Mark.
Mark. back to you,
Thank you, Nancy.
evaluator.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Sylvia, have you got a word master report for us? We have a tendency at end of the meeting to not use the word as much. But the winner today was Mark Crane, 5 times, which was used appropriately and for your speech. It was a very good speech. Thank you. Beth used it once. I have Margot used it, Phil used it, Kate used it a couple times. I might have fell asleep a few times listening to some of the evaluations. I'm sorry. So my mind was all over the place thinking about today honoring veterans. And I just want to honor my father, his 2 brothers that were served. One of my uncles was a career Army person. He used to send my dad letters when my dad was growing up, and all about the Army, which got my father excited. And his younger brother, who joined at age 15, which my grandfather had a sign for him, he wouldn't go to school. So he said, well, you might as well go to the Navy. And he was cleaning out torpedoes. He was a very small guy. So I would like to honor all 3 of them. Thank you. Thank you, Sylvia. Just as an aside, poppies germinate on disturbed land. So they were there at Flanders Field, just waiting, unfortunately, for a war to disrupt the soil. That's my little bit of horticultural knowledge for you. I don't have anything else, I don't think. We have Mark here to do winners.
You can join me for this part.
Okay. All right. Our best table topics is Jackie Kenny, who has already left us. Best speaker is our fill-in, Mark Crane. And I did this out of order. Best evaluator is Phil Russell.
Mark, would you like to draw the winning ticket? All right, the winner ends in 583. All right, Beth Banks is the winner.
Thanks.
Big winner today. All right, at this point, we'll turn control of the meeting to our presiding officer, Kate.
Thank you so much, Mr. Toastmaster and Madam Vice President of Membership and General Evaluator. Okay, it is 8:28. Great meeting today. I loved it. I wonder if there are any announcements from the floor. We didn't really have any before. We had great officers training last Saturday and Tuesday. Thank you to all the officers who participated. I believe our next meeting is this coming Wednesday evening. That would be November 16th. On behalf of Gerald, I'll remind all of us officers, we'll be planning our holiday party and some other things that we have working in the works. We do have our guest, Sarah. I'm not sure, Sarah, are you able to come on to audio and or audio visual and say what brought you here today? Sarah, are you there?
Yes, hello. Thank you, everyone. It was actually Eric who brought me here today. He was a guest speaker for my presentations class here at Canisius College. He gave a little speech just on his experience public speaking, and he invited me to come to the meeting, and I am not the best public speaker, so I thought I'd give it a shot. So thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Sarah.
I was
Go ahead.
kind of focused on listening and observing the meeting, so I didn't have too much exactly to say, but I did notice that everyone seemed very well prepared and not really nervous at all. Everyone also acknowledged me and made me feel very welcome, even though I did not have my camera on the whole meeting. And all the evaluation that everybody gave seemed very constructive and helpful. And that's kind of it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah, so much for coming. We appreciate you jumping on too at the end now to see what you thought, what brought you here. It was Eric, and we all can be better speakers. We've all felt nervous. Maybe we didn't show it today. That's because of all this practice and because we come to meetings when we can. We meet every Thursday except Thanksgiving, everybody. We have 2 weeks away from today. We have off, but otherwise we have a schedule. And I'll pass it over to Len. And Len, why don't you, after you announce, close the meeting also?
Thank you, Kate. Our next Toastmaster is Mark Crane. Bit of a stretch for a new member, but I'm sure you're up to the task. There's a tool online on our website called Toastmaster in a Box. If you download that, it kind of walks you through everything you need to do in the order you need to do it for our standard meeting format. I can work with you on that, or if you can't find it, just give a shout, okay? Marty already sent it to you. Fantastic. We're ahead of the curve there. With that, if there are no further announcements, I will close this meeting. Happy Veterans Day to everybody tomorrow.
Thanks for coming, Sarah, and thanks for popping on screen. Like I said, we appreciate you joining us today. What's the class that you're in that's a speaking class? Is it like a public speaking basics or something?
It's yeah, it's dynamic presentations. It's just you give a couple of speeches. It's the bulk of the class.
Awesome. What year did you say you are?
Senior. I'm hoping to graduate in spring of 2023.
Congratulations. That's so
Thank
exciting.
you.
I hope you join us again so we get to know a little bit more about you. You can come as a guest as often as you like or dive right in. And a lot of folks do join as seniors in college because you're looking for interviewing skills and practice. There's a lot of benefits to working together during mentoring sessions, one-on-ones, and the regular meetings. So yeah, Eric can answer any questions you have, but any of us are happy to. So I'll reach out to Eric, and then Eric will be your liaison if that works for you.
Yep, perfect.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, everybody.
I've got to get going to work. Bye, everyone.
All
Have
right,
a great day.
bye, everybody.
I don't know what the turnaround time is, but then you'll be able to bring up the the AM Lockport, it's called the Free Post website, which will have those agenda items on it. And you'll also, he doesn't have access because I talked to Gerald and he said, different things going on, homeless, different things. So even if you want to do them, so we're gonna get, he's gonna read. Provide an application of the single photo that's and the other officers are gonna process it. And then I don't know what the turnaround time is, but then he'll have access to free post holes. You'll get a message from, I don't know if it's from Free Post or International, but it'll say, well, Toastmasters joining, it'll say, in order for us to communicate, give us authorization to email address for communication. And if you do that, then that's the standard, is to do that. So to do that, and then you'll be able to use the sites and communicate back and forth with you. And you'll get other emails, but that's one to look for. And I don't know what the turnaround time is, but then you'll get access to the Free Post host, the Lockport website, international. I just talked to Beth. I did. And we're gonna. Yeah. We're just gonna. And then because he had his pathway from Buffalo Flyers credited, so we have to try to find out where that is.
I mean, that, he still is credited with that as long as his membership is still. So,
Transferred over.
it doesn't give AM up.
That's what we'll do. Yeah. I've got to run, I've got to look at the word and get the things that you can find. Good job. Very good. All right, thanks. Just trying to know. Make sure you guys grab some of that, what is it, banana bread or some type of bread down on the table that, somebody made. Looks delicious. Excellent. Congratulations. Hey, Mark, if you didn't, you can put if you grab your ticket, you can put it in the loser box, or you can do it next week. That little bin, put all the, in there once a year, twice a year. Yeah, put your name on the back. I think twice a year, they take a drawing for one of these. Very cool. You gotta take care of a couple things. Absolutely. I wasn't expecting you to do it that fast, but. And you know what? Just do a little bit. And same way with the speech. Like I've known that the more prepared I am, the better and the more comfortable you feel. So when things come up, and I'll be sitting right here, so you'll be fine.
All right, take care. We'll see you later.
Absolutely. Hey, you know what? Hard enough not to get fired.
I know that.
I'm glad you laughed at them.
I think they were overly generous again.
Mark, you need a hand bringing anything that up?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Here, I'll carry the poster.
You can just put it out in the back of the truck. No, I gotta.
Here, please.
Yeah, just in the back of my truck.
How about the flag?
Yes, please.
David?
Thank you for everything. I love this stuff, you know,
You need anything right now? Nope. Well, you have to